East Coast, T-minus 6 hours. Count them, Matt. You do the math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until the start of NBA free agency.
I am a math wizard.
Time is ticking.
We'll get into that later. Today tends to be, Michelle, the most chaotic 24 hours in the NBA. There's already been some movement. I want to get you caught up on some of the decisions already made as we count you down to the start of, look at this.
Boom.
You got seconds and everything. Got 8. You got James Harden. Let's count you down to some of the big moves that have already happened here on the market. Early signs pointing towards James Harden opting into his player option to return to the Sixers. The MVP declined his $47.3 million player option to become a free agent. Similar to Harden, Wizards star Bradley Beal declined his player option. He is eligible to sign a 5-year max contract to return to Washington or can sign elsewhere on a 4-year deal. After not reaching a contract extension last season, DeAndre Ayton will become a restricted free agent. The center will turn 24 in July. He could receive a 5-year max deal from Phoenix. What about Zach LaVine? He is set to become an unrestricted free agent after leading the Bulls to the playoffs. If he returns to Chicago, he could make over $50 million more than if he were to go to another team. This one's interesting. We're keeping an eye on Jalen Brunson. He is going to hit the market as an unrestricted free agent, though it is widely anticipated he'll receive a huge payday from the Knicks in the range of $100 million. So let's take a look now at some other names we want to keep an eye on. Michelle, go.
Yeah, Matt, you know what? It is the start of NBA free agency here, and that is why the theme of the day, Woj, is going to be counting this down until 6 p.m. Eastern. We've got a big decision that James Harden made, and quite frankly, it's something that you don't see all the time. We've got a big star who's actually declining big money, but is likely to stay with the same team. Can you get into that a little bit more and tell us what you think Philly is expected to do at 6 o'clock?
Yeah, by James Harden declining that $47 million option, now he's able to do a longer-term deal. He'll certainly make up that money back over an extended period. But what it allows Philly to do now is to have more access to tools to improve their team. Their mid-level exception at $10 million, their $4 million biannual exception. And that's a conversation that Philly and Harden have been having about how he can help them go out and improve this roster. I think P.J. Tucker in Miami is a player that the Sixers plan to target in free agency. He's got history as a teammate in Houston with Harden and, of course, with Daryl Morey, their general manager.
Right.
But, listen, James Harden will be back in Philly. It's a matter of what the contract looks like. But by all expectations, it's going to be a deal that allows Philly to put some more pieces around Joel Embiid and, of course, Harden.
Yeah, it gives them some flexibility. The 76ers' 629 win percentage over the last 5 seasons is the second best of any team behind only the Bucks. Woj, you're going to stick around really all show. You'll be back shortly. Matt, over to you.
Michelle, thank you. Here with Bobby Marks, our front office insider. And Bobby, one of the big names we're keeping an eye on is DeAndre Ayton, former #1 overall pick. He's the guy the Suns elected not to do a contract extension with during the season. So what do we have in store here for the Suns and what they might do, maybe a sign and trade? What do we have with Ayton and the money?
Yeah, the top restricted free agent on the market. They can't just allow him to go out and sign with the team. They have the rights to match any offer sheet. So if you're not comfortable paying him 5 years, $179 million, maybe you go out and you do a sign and trade instead of allowing him to sign an offer sheet and then you match and you're not comfortable. So when you look at, the best scenario would be for him to go back, right?
Yeah.
They don't have cap space to kind of replace him. So when you're looking at, certainly potential teams, one team certainly to keep an eye on is the Indiana Pacers, right? $26.5 million in cap space. You could make it work where maybe a player like Miles Turner would come back in a deal. Maybe you get a first-round pick. That gets you a center last year of his contract here. So that's the scenario to kind of keep an eye on as far as an Ayton, maybe Turner swap.
Sure.
That would go there. The other team that could certainly use a center, would be a team like the Raptors. But the hard part is where the Pacers had cap space, they only have a little bit here. So you would have to make the money work. Ayton's contract is complicated. It only counts about his 50% going out. So you're going to have to start adding some of your core pieces. And as you can see with this Toronto Raptor, Who would it be? That's the hard part. One of your core guys would have to go out in a trade.
And are you getting better by bringing in a guy like Ayton, who probably hasn't lived up to those number one pick expectations, getting rid of a guy like Anunoby to go over to the Phoenix Suns? As a front office insider, I'd like your take on this as it regards to the Suns. When you're a number one overall pick, like DeAndre Ayton, if the team was interested in keeping him around long term, would this normally have been something that would have been done in the regular season to not even have gotten to this point?
He would have gotten an extension last offseason when Luka got one in Dallas, when Trae Young got one in Atlanta. We wouldn't even be talking about DeAndre Ayton right now.
Oh, by the way, the Suns were talking about both Luka and Ayton come draft night.
We know how that went.
They went with DeAndre Ayton. Bobby Marks with us all afternoon. Bobby, thank you.
Matt, speaking of trades, the San Antonio Spurs are trading all-star guard DeJounte Murray to the Atlanta Hawks as they pivot towards a rebuild. In exchange, they'll get forward Danilo Gallinari and 3 first-round picks, a 2023 first-round pick, plus their own 2025 and 2027 picks. With Murray paired alongside Trae Young, the Hawks now get one of the best young backcourts in the league. So let's go behind the numbers now. How are they going to fit together? Murray and Young will be the first duo in NBA history to average 20 points and 8 assists in the previous season. The only other players to reach those marks last year were Darius Garland, Luka Doncic, and James Harden. Both Murray and Young can score on and create opportunities for teammates. Last season, Young had the most games with 10 assists, while his new teammate Murray had the 4th most such games in the league. And I want to talk about this. One area that Murray will likely need time to adjust to Young is on catch and shoot opportunities. Young drives to the basket often, and last season Murray hit only 35% from behind the arc on those shots. So I promised you guys more Woj. I'm delivering more Woj right now. DeJounte Murray first with the Hawks. What made the Spurs want to make that move right now?
Just how much they got in return for Murray. 3 unprotected first-round picks and a pick swap for a player who was a first-time All-Star last year. And remember, this is a San Antonio team that is really headed into a full rebuild. I think DeJounte Murray at 25 years old, headed into his prime.
Right.
That's not a great fit for him. This is a team that had 3 first-round picks this year. And you're going to see now the Spurs really putting perhaps one of the youngest teams in the league on the floor. But they got so much back in return for Murray. They valued him, but I think this was impossible for them to say no to.
Murray, like you said, coming off those career highs, it does raise the question, however, for San Antonio. When I hear the words full rebuild, I think about Popovich, and I think about a guy who has nothing left to prove on the court, right? Does he want to stick around for a full rebuild? What does it say about his future?
Well, he's 73 years old, so I think very much this is a year-to-year proposition for Greg Popovich. But I know this, he loved coaching that young team last year, and he likes the guys, the improvement he's seen with this group. It's a very different kind of coaching, than he had certainly with all the years. And of course, you'd rather be winning and winning championships. But I think he does embrace the teaching and the enthusiasm, energy of the young group. And listen, I think all indications are he's back this season. And I think he also knew this was what was best for the long term of the organization's future. Again, 3 first-round picks to set this organization up beyond his time as coach. I think that's what he had in mind. And I think certainly he'll miss Murray. He developed in a great way under him.